Europe's leading economies, France, Germany, Italy, Switzerland and the United Kingdom have joined. Russia is on board. Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iran and the United Arab Emirates are also in. In all, nearly 60 countries are founding members of the new China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, known as the AIIB, surprising many analysts. The new bank is one of several Chinese initiatives offering an alternative to the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund and the Asian Development Bank. China's rapid growth in recent decades has many economists expecting it to overtake the United States in the next few years as the world's leading economy. But with the US opting not to join the new bank, some are wondering whether it signals reluctance by the United States to accept China's status and work together to solve some of the world's pressing economic challenges. Later, we'll talk with a leading Asian scholar and US trade analyst. But for more on the AIIB, we turn now to our newsroom in CCTV's Owen Fairclough. And Owen, China has shaken up the order of global financial institutions with this Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. What can you tell us about the bank's goals and how is it different from existing institutions?
Well, Alan, it's not that often that we get clarity in the title of a global institution, but the AIIB has given us just that. It's all about building things, railways, dams, energy installations, and so on. The World Bank has traditionally focused on things like poverty reduction, though not exclusively. And the IMF, as we've seen in recent months, is a little bit consumed right now with firefighting economic crises in countries like Greece and Ukraine. But the AIIB is looking at the bigger picture and also has the financial resources to back it up with China and other countries. That said, its capital is a little bit smaller than the IMF. It has around $50 billion in startup capital. The IMF has around more than 10 times that. But of course, we have to remember it's been around since the Second World War, so much longer.
I know, and as we said earlier, European countries are among those joining the new bank, but the US is conspicuously absent. Why has the United States so far, at least, refused to join?
Well, President Barack Obama says he's actually all for it, but many analysts question whether the US Congress would actually approve the US joining the AIIB. That said, Obama himself is concerned about transparency. He's basically concerned that money might be wasted on infrastructure projects that actually never come to fruition with no real audit trail. The AIIB officials say this bank will be lean, green and clean and will have people appointed on ability, not political connections, all in keeping with President Xi Jinping's anti-corruption drive. And it's worth remembering that many people have accused the IMF of being less than transparent. You have to wait 3 years for the minutes of its board meetings. Many global institutions, well, they release their minutes just a couple of weeks after they meet. And remember, geographically, the IMF and the World Bank, well, they're just a few minutes walk from the White House. The AIIB will be based in Beijing.
Now, the Chinese bank, or the Chinese-led bank, rather, was launched just a few months ago after it got together with key emerging nations, the so-called BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. So is the ultimate goal here, Owen, more clout?
Well, it's certainly true to say that those countries you mentioned have felt they've been underrepresented at these global institutions. Combined, they represent nearly half the world's population and put out nearly a quarter of the world's economic output. But that isn't reflected in their voting power at institutions like the IMF. And yet they represent the new global economic order. Geographically as well, you have to remember the IMF and the World Bank doesn't really do an awful lot of business in the key areas where China is focusing on. You remember President Xi Jinping has just been to Belarus, Russia and Kazakhstan. They make up most of the Eurasian Economic Union, helping to link China and other countries with the new Silk Road economic trade route that runs right through Central Asia. And that is the exact region right now that needs railways, pipelines and ports.
Okay, Owen, thanks. That's CCTV's Owen Fairclough reporting.